speaking about, the next example I was going to give you relates to commercial vehicle litigation or tractor-trailer litigation, which is a lot of what my firm does. In these cases, you've got one specific thing that comes to mind that we've litigated a good bit about recently, and I expect that this will continue. It would have continued regardless, but in light of some of the things going on, I think it will more likely than not increase in one particular area, and that is the federal regs requirements for inspection, maintenance, and repair of vehicles. All right, there are very extensive regs that apply to the inspection, maintenance, and repair of these big trucks. Okay, and the goal of the federal regs is to make the public highways safer for all people. A big part of that is making sure that the vehicles out there, the 60,000 pound, 80,000 pound tractor trailers, when they're loaded, are safe, their brakes are working, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when you have the doubling of gas prices, all right, now we've seen a reprieve, but my expectation is that that won't last so long. When you have a doubling of fuel prices, this is one of the major expense items that you see in the commercial transportation industry. So what do? Okay, they've got this enormous expense that's double what it used to be. The obvious thing, if you understand anything about business, is that they're going to try and find somewhere to make it up in some other place. Another expense item that can be substantial, and it really should be substantial if you're doing it properly, is the maintenance and repair of your fleet. So what we would look for, what we do look for in those type of cases, is when you've got a situation where there's a maintenance or repair issue in the case, where we can tell in our reconstruction that the brakes weren't working properly, the steering mechanism wasn't working properly, or some other mechanical component of the vehicle. We go back and we start looking at the history of their budgets for inspection, maintenance, and repair. And at some point, we will find that they have made a decision, for example, because of high gas prices. Now, this is not across the board, but you definitely see it in that industry. You will see a correlation between the spike in gas prices and an inverse relation in the decrease in budgets for inspection, maintenance, and repair. Okay, yes, sir.
Does that rule apply for cross-border, for, in this case, Mexican or Canadian?
Well,
the regs you're talking about.
Yeah, well, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regs apply to all commercial carriers and commercial vehicles within the United States.
If they cross the border.
Well, if they cross the border, they have to operate under the regs of the United States. Now, there's been some recent regulation changes about that, and there's a lot, obviously, a lot of hotly contested positions on both sides about allowing aliens, non-American citizens, to drive commercial vehicles. Yes, ma'am.
I think there's also fear of the actual truck safety itself. After all, if they were to cause an accident, how would you obtain records that were supposedly done in Mexico against vehicles that were maintained in Mexico?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and the regs require, of course, maintenance records. They require pre-trip, post-trip inspection reports. They require driver logs be kept for a certain period of time. Lots of documentation in that industry that's very important in trucking litigation. And you're absolutely right. If you're dealing with a carrier that's cross-border, the chances of ever getting that would be slim and none. And I don't see how you could possibly expect for it to be up to the standards that, even if the regs apply technically, I don't see that it would ever be up to the standards that we have here.
Question, do we have positive identification of the drivers?
Come again.
How do we know if they are who they say they are? Are we taking biometrics, fingerprints?
That's not something that we see. I mean, you're required to have a commercial driver's license, and as long as your commercial driver's license matches up with the system, that's pretty much as far as they go in that process. So, It's not so far. And we haven't, that hasn't become so much of an issue yet, but once again, those issues have been on the table and certainly were during the Bush administration. And you know, how that comes about under the new administration, or what types of changes, if any, are allowed, that remains to be seen.